Hello, everybody. I am Kelly Rohrs, and I'm here today with Zach Kravat. We are here to record a little session on hygiene for the new fiscal year for businesses. As you probably know, I am a CPA. My practice has been in existence for about 5 years now. We support the accounting community and professional services as our client base. And we're here to just record some friendly conversations. I miss doing the podcast. So recently we started recording again. Let's get some traction here. Post on social media. We'll be uploading this to YouTube. And today I have my wonderful high school friend,
That's right.
Zachary Kravat.
Go way back.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for
Welcome.
having me. It's a pleasure to be here chatting with you. We do go way back, and so it's very cool to see the progress that we've made since the early aughts.
Oh my gosh, like the DECA days.
Yes, very. I know business development even back then, even back in the high school days. That's a little different.
Yeah, and we have not spoken to each other. A couple of months ago we reconnected, probably, supported each other on social media for several years, but like we just reconnected after not speaking for almost, I don't know, 15 to 20 years.
Oof, a long time, which is
Sounds so
almost
old
certainly my
like
fault.
that.
No, like you mentioned up top, I'm a lawyer. I'm a litigator by trade. After law school, I spent about a decade at big law firms, two big law firms in the city, litigating a lot of white collar criminal defense, complex commercial litigation, kind of everything under the sun. Uh, just really honing my skills as a litigator. And within the past year, about 7.5, 8 months ago, I decided to take the leap and start my own practice. So all of a sudden, I went from being, all right, what's my caseload for the day? What are the things I have to do for my clients? To handling all that stuff and being a small business owner at the same time. So, I immediately realized I was in deeper waters than I expected. And so I said, let me look around and see if there's anybody that can throw me a lifesaver and a life preserver. And, you know, you're killing it on social media. You have great presence. You've obviously been very successful with your business and your practice. And so I was like, let me reach out to my old friend Kelly and see if she can, give a floundering newbie some tips, and it's been great.
Well, so happy to support you. Like, we're happy to support all professionals. Like, I think we can, be in this together. We're not in competition. Let's share what works, share what doesn't work,
Hmm.
because I just want to see everyone succeed because I feel like the opportunities are endless.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, one of the first things that I've learned as a new business owner is just the value of connecting with everybody. So for me, it's not just connecting with lawyers. I connect with a lot of lawyers of all different stripes, people that do similar practices to me, people that are very different practices to me, or professionals, CPAs, business advisors, bankers. Um, it's just the more you kind of meet people, learn about their businesses, learn about their practice. It's all great to just give you ideas, start to wrap your head around how you can make your own path.
Exactly. And we should have started recording like 20 minutes ago when we first got on, because we
That's
were
right.
like going back and forth. And then the organic things that come up, it's just like when you start brainstorming with other individuals, whether they're other accountants or they're other attorneys or, people in the consulting space, it's like we can bring up all of these like fiery ideas together and bounce things off of each other. And it's exciting.
It's really exciting. Um, so when you and I started batting around this idea of like let's record something, let's share some of our experience, and maybe we can get some input from other people. You know, I'm all in, and especially I think our topic du jour today of company hygiene, business owner hygiene is kind of perfect for this time of the year. This is the time of year where I'm like, oh man, what do I have to do like for my own health? Like, should I eat better? I should probably go to the doctor, right? I should go to those doctors I missed throughout the year. As a business owner, I think everybody should be thinking about maybe I need to go see my accountant. I need to see my lawyer. What are the things that I should have, it's always been in the back of my mind all year. Oh, I really should check on that. It's been a while since I looked into this, but you get caught up in just the day to day of running your business. So this is a perfect topic, I think.
Completely agree. Yeah, that looming, like, I should probably go to a general doctor has like been in the back of my head. It's like, okay, did the derm appointments, got my
Yep,
teeth cleaned. But yeah, we don't really talk about hygiene within business, and people get so stuck in the day-to-day operations that they forget about, like, let's look at big picture things. Let's revisit some really important topics to CYA, you know? Anybody
absolutely.
doesn't know what that means? Cover your ASS.
That's a good one. I like you're keeping it clean. It's good. We both have young
Yeah.
kids, so
So, let's get started. We want to talk about, hygiene items for our business clients.
Mhm.
And, we put together some things that we want to touch upon today. Zach, let's talk about some really important legal items
Sure.
that you think we should bring to the forefront.
Yeah, something that I recommend to clients, whether they're startups or if they are more developed companies, is you should review. Look, the contracts are your insurance, they're the bones of your company, right? You're running your day-to-day operations. You don't tend to think about the underlying structure, one, of your company, and then of your relationships with your clients, with your vendors. Um, but all of those things are really based on the terms of the contract. And look, if everything goes well, you really don't have to think about it, right? It's only when things go poorly you go, wait a second, somebody pull up that contract. I got to see what the term is. And so the concept of having good corporate business hygiene when it comes to your agreements is to stay on top of those, to be apprised of those on a more regular basis, so you're not surprised down the line. And that starts, I think, with the very bones of your business, your operating agreement, your shareholder agreement, things that I think a lot of companies, especially smaller companies, um, kind of do it, if they do it, when they first start up, right? When you're getting your LLC approved or you're getting your Inc. approved, you put these things together. You might even print it off LegalZoom and kind of cheap
Ugh,
out off
hate
of
that.
going to a lawyer because you
Hate
don't have the funds.
it.
I trust me. I hate it, but I see it, right? In a lot of companies,
Hmm.
when you don't have that cash flow on day one, you're very hesitant to spend the funds, and you'll get something bare bones, not applicable to your business, and you'll kind of never think about it ever again. But you really should start to think, especially as your business grows, does the actual bones of my business, does my operating agreement, et cetera, really reflect the reality of what's going on today? Has it been updated for all your shareholders? Who gets to make decisions? What happens if one of your partners leaves? Right? These are things that, again, you don't think about until they happen. But once they happen, you better make sure you have a plan in place or you could be in real trouble
Yeah, absolutely. And I see disagreements with firm owners all the time,
all the time.
especially attorneys.
Well, because, look, a lot of attorneys think, the rules might not apply to us. We know what we're doing, so we don't have to do the kind of corporate formalities that other businesses have to do, which is just
It's like the
absolutely not true.
shoemaker's shoes kind of thing.
100%. You're still a partnership. You're still an entity, under the state in which you're incorporated, and you still have to abide by an agreement.
You know what? You
Yeah.
just brought up a really good point because you said state.
Hmm.
And I think that a lot of issues have been coming up with Nexus and Nexus in different states. And recently, more than ever, I've had companies that are like, hey, I just hired this employee and they're in Missouri.
Mm.
Or,
Hmm.
I actually have to get approved by the bar in Missouri. I have to register my company as a foreign entity in XYZ state.
Sure.
Like, people are not aware, especially now in these like virtual times. Like, oh, well, I'll just hire somebody out in California.
Hmm.
Well, you better pause and think about the ramifications there because you might actually have to register for payroll. You may have to register for income taxes. You may have to register for corporate taxes. Um,
Those are all
and
very
that's
scary
like a
words.
hybrid of legal and accounting issues
Absolutely.
because I can't do, foreign registrations in another state. I'd be like, hey, Zach, we need to, reach out and see, what we need to do here. And
Hmm.
it's like, you can't just, you need to know what you're getting yourself into. Because, if you're going to be opening up an LLC in the state of California, you didn't realize that there's an $800 fee every single year for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's all the reason why to try as best as you can to stay on top of this stuff.
You
Yeah,
also,
go ahead.
we spoke about contracts and engagement letters, and like you said, a lot of times, like, it's good until it's not good. And something that's come up for me over the years, like, I am a member of the CPA. I use their engagement letters. I That's the E&O insurance that I have,
Mm-hmm.
and so I've developed my own set of engagement letters, like, after the fact. But it's crazy, but some people pay you and then will ghost you. Like, it's
Yeah.
happened to me several times. And only, now after the first time it happens and someone came back after a number of, it was almost like a year and a half, maybe close to two
Mm-hmm.
years. And they're like, hey, maybe we should like revisit this. Can I get a refund? And it's like, well, we did a lot of the work at the time and then they just stopped answering, but we always collect our fees up front. A big
The
believer of
golden rule,
that.
which I need to be better at following.
It's tough, but if you set that boundary at the beginning, or even this is a great time to transition into new policies because we're going into January. Right? I've been saying that to my clients a lot. Like, any changes that you need to make, like, this is the new policy of the new year. But either way, we added something into our engagement letters that does state, like, if we don't hear from you within an X amount of months, then we keep the fees.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, yeah, I had to CYA after something happened to me,
Sure.
and I wouldn't have known that until after the fact. So, it's a good time to think of, like, has anything occurred this year that I don't want to occur in the future? And can I legally, add that into any contracts that I have with clients or vendors, or even within your own partner structure?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of things that I'm thinking about right now that I've seen businesses deal with. That look, they could be minor issues, and they could blow up to be very, very major issues. So, one thing is just on like your client or vendor side, particularly let's say on your vendor side, you have a contract, let's say a service contract with a vendor. They're going to provide you with some kind of service or maybe some kind of financing, and it's an agreement with an automatic renewal, right? I mean, we tend to get used to this now because everything is set on auto pay. We pay like our Netflix and everything on auto pay, our cars on auto pay. Well, the terms of your contract from your business to your counterparty might also be similarly set up. There might be very specific ways in which you need to terminate the contract. So I've seen clients that have gotten along great with a counterparty for a year, 2 years, 3 years. Everything's just going great. All of a sudden, the relationship sours for one reason or another. They reach out and they say, this has been great, but I think it's time for us to part ways. No harm, no foul. The other party throws up a contract, goes, absolutely not. You're in the middle of a contract term. If you wanted to cancel this, you had to do it 6 months ago by giving us 30 days written notice by mail. And if you haven't done that, sorry, you're locked in until the end of the term. And that could be a very, very expensive problem for a business to have, not just in paying a lawyer to try to fight that, but just to continue to pay a service provider that is no longer providing you the value that they were once providing.
Absolutely. And before we started the call, I was talking about a vendor that I've recently had to transition from. Not going to name names or what type of vendor this was
Mm-hmm.
because they would probably know. But like, it was, hey, this wasn't in the contract. Like, you never told me that I was responsible for this. And they were like, oh, well, we told you verbally. It was a verbal agreement. And it's like, it was small enough where it was just like, okay, whatever. Like, I'm not going to
Right.
go back and forth here because it was over less than
Mm-hmm.
$1,000. So I ended up just paying for it and moving on. But like, those things, if they're more than
Yeah.
it worth your time, like, you have to get legal involved. And do you have a relationship with a legal advisor? Because if you don't, you really
Mm-hmm.
should. Because these situations come up like that. If you don't have somebody that you can call and reach out to that's going to be responsive, like you really need to get somebody in your Rolodex.
Yeah, I mean, because sometimes you will. Look, like I said, I'm kind of a litigator by trade, but I do a lot of contract drafting and advising for clients too. So one of the kind of values that I bring to when I'm helping a client structure a contract is I've seen what happens when this goes sideways, right? And this is why you need to be thinking about these things now on day one. Then again, a year from now, when you have a problem that you never imagined that you were going to have. Because sometimes there's terms in a contract, if you signed it without consulting with a lawyer, or maybe you didn't really read it that closely, which, is it's a no-no, but people do it, um, might be very contrary to your common sense, right? So you might think, oh, it's very common sense how this relationship works. If there's a problem, it's going to be the other party's responsibility. I don't have to worry about it until the day that problem comes. And the contract is very clearly the contract you didn't read or didn't have a lawyer explain to you is very clearly the other way. And now it's your problem.
Exactly. I mean, there's just so many gaps that you don't realize until it comes to the forefront.
Yeah.
But if you have proactive reviews of these documents, especially you're like, hey, you know what? I've never had any advisor review this for me. Or, again, we're coming up to this point in the year where it's a good time to have an excuse to go over things. Like a lot of times that's the problem for the client, right? Like they don't want to just randomly reach out to their vendor and act like they're targeting them
Mm-hmm.
or a staff member or a contractor
Mm-hmm.
or your own partner, because you guys can have a great relationship, but there's some sort of resentment building up over something that's going on within the business. And it's like hard for you to bring that up. Well, now here's your excuse. And an even better excuse is like, hey, I'm meeting with my advisory team and they've made these suggestions that we can implement in the new year.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, most lawyers and I think accountants are comfortable being the bad guy if we have to be, right? So I've offered to clients, look, if you need to tell your partner, one of your partners or one of your counterparties or clients that we can't do this anymore or we have to change the way they do it because the lawyer told me so, I'm happy to play that role. I'm happy to be that guy that's going to help you.
Great point, because I had this conversation with a client this week, and they were at the point where very young couple, they inherited a business. Father passed away. The guy was working in the business for a while, but 30 years old and wasn't really managing the business side
Sure.
of things. It can be very overwhelming to inherit this type of business. And you went from just being a sole proprietor with no legal protection and
Mm-hmm.
no, we got to get, we need an LLC in here. We need to really organize, no formal accounting records,
Mm-hmm.
like disaster. But it's been a year and we're finally getting them into a better place. And I said to them, hey, for the new year, you can tell your clients, your customers, my accountant says we have to do it this way moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, oh, yeah, we've been using you as an excuse, for the
Great.
last couple of months because they're getting, a practice management software in place, actually working on things within the business and working up contracts
Mm-hmm.
with their customers has been a big move for them. And it's like they're finally seeing the light. Some
Right.
people, when you're stuck in this, you've had this existing business for a while. You've always done it this way, right? That's like the
Sure.
famous last words. Well, we've always done it this way. So what's the difference now? Well, it's like, well, now it's 2025. Okay. We've got some aggressive agencies, whether it's legal or, the IRS or the state tax
Mm-hmm.
agencies. And we need to be in compliance. And not only the compliance factor side of it, it's the educational aspect, because it's the more data you have to make decisions, the better you can grow and continue to scale in the future. You can't just be winging it. without having all your ducks in a row. I mean, you can, but like at some point, like there
Mm-hmm.
might be an explosion and it could be detrimental.
I mean, I always tell people that good, like this hygiene stuff it's insurance is really what it is. Because again, I say this from experience because I've seen clients deal with this where you can have an absolutely flourishing business that is growing and is targeted for growth, and then something comes along that is just going to suck the life out of your whole business. I had a client I was working with. It was a 50-50 partnership between two individuals. And they had a bunch of really, really good years, a lot of really good client service. Could have absolutely been poised to grow. And what happened was, as sometimes happens between two 50-50 partners, they started to disagree with each other. So now what happens when the two guys that have equal say on the business don't agree on how to move forward? Well, you have a big problem, right? They went to their operating agreement that they had instituted on day one, said nothing about dispute resolution, said nothing about who gets control if there's any kind of conflict. So literally the business went from growing, stuck. There's just a wall there because you have two heads on the same business talking against each other, literally saying hiring separate accountants for the same company, hiring separate lawyers for the same company.
Oh, God.
And nobody knows who actually controls the company and who represents the company. And so now all of that growth is totally dead in the water with something that could and should have been talked about all the way on day one. But again, even if it doesn't happen on day one, if it's day 365, talk about it then. Say, hey, everything's going great. Let's make sure we don't shoot ourselves in the foot by not thinking ahead 2 steps to just the what if, right?
There's always situations that are going to come up. Like, this is bringing another client to mind here. I've had a client in business for a couple of years, and she's running a dental practice combined with a med spa. And unfortunately, someone sued her for the med spa name because there was somebody, in the same state with a similar name and the logo looked the same and it actually was a name. So names can't actually be trademarked. So this person just had a lot of money, I guess. And basically her legal team essentially has shut down my client's med spa side of her business for almost a year. And now my client is not in a good situation.
Yeah.
Like they had all of these pieces of equipment specifically for the med spa, opened up a whole nother side of her business, whole nother huge rent payment for the med spa. Grew her business off of social media, being able to advertise the med spa, and now has incurred tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees herself and had to halt her advertising for the med spa. So it's like, I know, one of the things we wanted to bring up is like, do you have insurance that may cover like these types of litigation situations? Because like it's basically the direction that it has gone into. And I think she's going to settle it before we actually go into a court situation.
Sure.
Had to get another attorney in there though. Like the first attorney she hired was not playing ball the right way. Had to seek another legal advisor. And now that we put somebody else in the position, like things are finally getting somewhere, but it's been pretty detrimental to her business and she's had to incur a lot of debt.
Yeah. I mean, that's awful for your client, but it brings up a lot of really good points for hygiene and otherwise. And one of the things about hygiene is protecting your brand, right? Let's say we're at the end of the year. You spent this whole year either passively or probably actively building on your brand, right? Your website, your social media, your brand name. Are those protected? Are those things protected? Are they protectable? And if they are, what steps are you taking to protect them, right? Is it filing for a trademark? Is it putting your copyright on things? Is it making sure that any contractual provisions that you're in with people that might have access to valuable parts of your business aren't going to run away with it, right? I have a client I work very closely with that has a kind of proprietary method of conducting their business, which is very valuable to them. It's not necessarily something that is patentable or trademarkable. So the strategy is, all right, then what we have to do is make sure that anybody that is going to come in contact with your method, your employees, your business partners, your clients are going to be signing pretty tight confidentiality provisions or NDAs in those agreements, again, to protect you so that you don't wake up tomorrow and the guy down the street is doing exactly what you're doing, that you put your blood, sweat, and tears into building. And now, again, what are you going to do? You're either losing business to them, you're competing with them, or more likely, now you got to hire a lawyer. And litigation, I am a litigator, and I say to clients, litigation should always be the last resort because it is expensive. It is. It's expensive because it represents you being very, very far down a path, right? So there are almost always cheaper ways of resolving a conflict. And again, I'm not trying to talk myself out of business, but um, a litigator is like a doctor. It's like you don't want to have to see them, but you want to make sure you know who you're going to go to if you need it. And again, you could probably skip the emergency room visit if you go to the doctor earlier and keep up with your health. So it's if businesses are organisms, it's very much similar.
Exactly. Like you have to be proactive here and make sure your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted, and not just at once at the beginning of starting your business. It's like there should be like an annual review. Take yourself out of being in the business
Mm-hmm.
to work on the business
Mm-hmm.
and on your relationships and do a little self check, because that's really what it's all about, right? It's like, well, okay, how many contracts do I have? Are there any that are more important than others? Maybe I just need a little review. If I get and people are fee sensitive, right?
Sure.
Why do I need to pay for like a checkup on what has gone into my contract that I put together 5 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you don't really know. The environment might have changed. There may have been some legal regulation change over the last couple of years. Maybe they say, hey, you know what? This is ironclad. This is good. We're tight.
Mm-hmm.
And then at least that gives you a sense of comfort and security for the next couple of years, or whatever the case is. You don't necessarily have to have your contracts reviewed every single year, but anything new that comes up, any new business developments, any new services that you're going to be putting out there, like let's make sure that you're legally protected.
So I would love to hear from you, because this is, like I said, I started my own business within this year. So we are still within the first, not only 12 months, we're still within the first calendar year of me being a business owner. So I would love to hear from you, just kind of off the top of your head, as we're getting into December, we're getting into year end, what are some of the kind of specific bookkeeping, accounting, tax stuff that, let's say in particular, so I can get something out of this, small business owners
Yes.
should be really paying attention to and taking the time now to catch up on, if we haven't been for the last 11 months.
Great question. So there's so much, and I'm meeting with a lot of people at year end to go over our current client list. People, a lot of clients we meet with on a quarterly basis, and we just met with them after the close of Q3. And we're also going to be meeting with them in December because we want to make sure that they're maximizing any strategies that are available to them before December 31st. Like
Mm-hmm.
there are some things that have to be done before year end, and there's other things that can linger before the due date of your business return or your personal return. So most business returns are due March 15th, personals are due April 15th. There's usually a 6-month extension for both. Now, before 12/31, we want to make sure, if you are an S corporation, right? Most small businesses are either a single member LLC, an
Mm-hmm.
S corporation, or a partnership. So generally, my advice for switching between a single member LLC and an S corporation for like a single owner is going to be maybe about $150,000 of profit. Makes sense for you to be an S corporation. So there are some people right now that we are still transitioning to an S corporation for the whole year of 2025. Now, it's not for everybody. It's not a one size fits all because it depends on your demographic. It depends on your long term plans. Do you plan on bringing partners on board? Because then maybe I would say not to do an S corporation,
Right.
or maybe we're going to restructure in the future and your S corporation is going to be part of a new partnership. But, if you're in New York City, I definitely say, an S corporation isn't the way to go unless you're making over like $350 or $400,000 profit, because we've got other complications with unincorporated business taxes and corporate taxes for New York City. But like, long story short, there's still time to do those things and file an S election retroactively, set up payroll, make sure you're taking reasonable compensation through a salary. So many S Corp owners are not taking payroll. Biggest red flag. I have someone right now who has had their company in existence for, I don't know, maybe 15 years. I don't think they've ever taken a payroll. And I'm like, we're not doing the return unless you take a payroll. And they just aren't educated. No one taught them that they needed to do this, because there are so many accountants out there that are unfortunately older and have been doing things like this, forever, and have that, well, we've always done it this way, so like, why does she need to do it now? But it's like, well, she also missed out on 15 years of Social Security and Medicare wages. And yeah, that's S Corp thing. I know it's very specific, but outside of that, so many people coming to me don't have books, or their books don't even match their tax return, which is super scary. So formal accounting records, I hate to say I hate Intuit, but we do put most of our clients on QuickBooks Online.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like everybody uses it
Smoother, right.
type of attitude. So, I would recommend doing a bank reconciliation, putting all of the bank and the credit card transactions, making sure everything is separate too, running everything through the business account, business credit card, setting it up in QuickBooks. I mean, it's difficult. It's not easy. They say, oh yeah, it's so easy, you could do it yourself. But like, I have clients that have done it themselves, and guess what? They've underreported income. They've overreported income.
Sure.
We have somebody right now who actually has a bookkeeper, and they picked up $30,000 of extra income because their undeposited funds wasn't matched to receipts that came in, because they synced their software to, an outside service. And a lot of attorneys do this, like with Clio or LawPay or, whatever you're using. They think, oh, QuickBooks says I can connect these things, so I think it's going to work. And you know what? Sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
But you really should have
It's a garden
somebody
that needs tending.
Yes, exactly. And sometimes you let it grow too much and it needs a lot of tending.
Yeah.
And then it becomes very expensive, kind of like litigation. It's like, get it in early, set it up the right way. It may be a little shocking, like, oh, I have to pay somebody to do this for me. But it's like, no, this is worth every single penny, because we're giving you so much value knowing that you're paying the right amount of money in taxes. We're letting you know how we can save you in taxes. And again, like, there's some things that have to be done before 12/31, right? Or the IRS wants their money equally throughout the year. So when you're working a W-2 job, you're paying every time you get a paycheck.
Right.
When you go out on your own, you're no longer doing that. So you owe taxes on your profit. That money is due April 15th, June 15th, September 15th, and January 15th. You owe money for 25 based on what happened in 24. So the IRS has safe harbor rules, and most states are the same way. They want you to pay in at least 100% of last year's taxes equally throughout the year. Otherwise, they're going to give you a penalty.
Yeah, it's something I'm dealing with, especially going from a pretty cushy firm job in 24 with that income to new scrappy business owner and 25 with different type of income. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's why it's good to have people like you in your corner to let you know this, because look, the IRS isn't knocking on everybody's doors saying you owe the money, you know, in advance. They'll knock on your door afterward and say, hey, you were supposed to pay me money.
Unfortunately, there's no rule book when you register your company with the Department of State. I've always said this, like they should give you like a little handbook and say,
Right.
okay, here, like this is what you're going to be responsible for, but you don't know until you know. You don't know that you need to file 1099s for people who, you pay over $600. You don't know that you're required to make estimated payments. And we have a client that I met with yesterday. Their income was higher than last year.
Mm-hmm.
Their income this year is lower than it was last year. So they had a little bit of a down year. She's in personal injury and she's still making great money, but we ran the numbers to see what 100% of the tax was for last year to make sure she doesn't have a penalty. Now, the penalty was only like $175, so she'd rather just wait and pay it, when
penalty.
she's ready.
Sure.
And that's fine. But at least like she has that knowledge now because we took her firm numbers, we ran a tax projection, we actually do a full mock tax return and say, okay, well, we can do this with your SEP IRA. We can do, this with the estimated payments. We need to make this pass-through entity tax payment by December 31st because that's a workaround to the SALT cap, which still is affecting certain people. Like,
sure.
I'm sure people have heard, oh, the SALT cap is now 40,000. Like, I don't need to do X, Y, Z, or like, I'm going to qualify for it. But like, guess what? Like, if you are a standard deduction, you still should do the pass-through entity taxes because it's going to be a benefit above and beyond the standard deduction. It's like usually if you don't own a home or your mortgage interest and your real estate taxes are low, or many of our clients are phasing out. The $40,000 cap that just came out with the new bill, that one big beautiful bill. It phases out when you are making between $500,000 and $600,000 a year as a married couple. And we have a lot of clients who are well above that. So that strategy must be implemented before 12/31 if you want to maximize it.
Right.
So there's a lot of moving parts.
It's very difficult being an adult. It's very difficult being an adult, and it's even harder being a business owner. There's a lot of layers, and look, I think it's very easy for people to just kind of focus on what's directly in front of them. I am certainly guilty of it as much as anybody else. So, I'm not even somebody that practices totally what I preach, just to be totally honest. But like I said, I've seen enough of things go sideways to know at least what people should be doing, even if they're not.
You always see these like memes on social media, like, oh, I wish they would have told us about taxes in high school. Instead, I'm learning about like, parallelograms or like, the Pythagorean theorem or something like that.
You're going to get some mathematicians angry at you now.
Yeah. Well, we two of us back in the day in calculus were like in the, highest level of calculus. How have I ever used that in my life? Like,
no, one of my dirty secrets is I failed the AP test in calculus. So don't ask me. I went to law school to avoid numbers.
You didn't have to tell everybody that. No shame though.
Yeah.
Well, I think the moral of the story today is really like, be proactive, take the time to work on the business, and like lean on advisors. Don't be afraid to engage with a team of advisors, because if you want to continue to grow, you want to continue to, be in compliance and be protected, you need us.
Give us a call. Always available.
So as we wrap it up here today, is there any last words that you'd like to share with everybody? Or
no, I mean, this is a lot of fun. This is really great. I hope people can take away at least a tidbit or an idea, or at the very least an intention of, that's a good idea. I should probably pull out those old contracts. Do I have an operating agreement? I should probably look at that. my books up to date? When's the last time I spoke to the accountant? Just, try to do one or two things at least off your list if you're not going to be pristine about your company's records. Otherwise, yeah, look, it's great connecting with you and hearing all these great things. I hope people call you for accounting questions. Lord knows I have a lot of accounting questions. And again, if anybody's got any litigation needs, commercial litigation needs, any questions about their contracts or reviews, something they want to bounce something off of, want to head off a storm or they're dealing with a storm that's brewing, you can always give me a call. I'll pitch myself. My website is kravatlaw.com, KRAVAT law.com. And would love to get to meet some of the folks that tune in.
That's perfect. I was just going to ask you, where can people find you? So, we've got his website, and on LinkedIn, you've been pretty active as well. So, please reach out and connect with Zach on LinkedIn. And thank you for tuning in. You know where to find me. And we'll talk soon. Thanks for listening.